Send the super chats.
I muted it. Good morning. Welcome to the morning show. I'm your host, Leonard Duncan. I have my rabble riser, Danny-Ray Duncan, my co-host with me. And our guest today is Joe Tolle. Thank you, Joe. I know that you're busy with ATV On Demand, and we appreciate you sitting down with us. Before we get started today, gentlemen, we need to really thank our sponsors, GBC Tires. They do a lot to make sure that we get out there to the general public so that all of our shows are being seen. So we really want to shout them out. Elka Suspension does an amazing job in the industry supporting also the new 2023 National ATV MX champion, Joel Hedrick. So remember, get some Elka shocks. They're really going to do you some good. And DBR Racing for making multiple products for different ATVs in the industry, from your YFC 450R and Raptor 125s and 250s and so on. There's more stuff. Go check out their website. Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
Doing fantastic. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. How about you, Joe?
I'm doing great. And hey, we talked about this last week. I wanted to kind of jump in when you were listing sponsors, because we just recently wrapped up a Sportsman project. We haven't published it yet. It's all scripted. It's filmed. We're in the editing process. So that'll be out hopefully in the next couple of weeks. But it's a big over-the-top project. Elko was a company that we used on it. The stock Sportsman 1000s, 850s, 570s, they're all a little soft. You know, they're all set up for just kind of slow to intermediate paced riding. It's hard to take advantage of all the motor that machine provides. And we ran some Elka Stage 4 shocks on that Sportsman, and it absolutely transformed the character of the machine. It still has that nice plush stock feeling, but the body roll is gone. It doesn't bottom nearly as easy. So I can't say for every machine, but I can definitely say if you got a Polaris Sportsman, Elka Stage 4, Stage 5 shocks are probably about the biggest change you could make to that machine's performance. So just thought I'd add that in.
Well, that's awesome. I can't wait to watch that video and see how they perform. You know, I'm becoming a non-sport ATV fan in the different markets that are out there, just because of our relationship and getting to talk about some of them and see them in action. It's really awesome to see what those guys can do on those machines.
Oh, they go really fast, and yeah, the Elka Stage 4 shocks really transformed the way we could ride the machine. I think it'll be pretty obvious when people see the video, especially if they go back and watch our shootout, because when we first did that shootout between the Sportsman 1000 and the Outlander 1000, you know, the Outlander took the win because it just edged out the Sportsman in about every aspect of performance. But the Polaris was plush, but it had too much body roll and dive, and it's just, wow, once you add those Elka shocks to it, you can really take a lot more advantage of all that horsepower. It was the single biggest improvement to the machine. We had a Texeratech front end on it that really helped with the high speed, nervous feeling that bike exhibits. So we got to credit Texeratech's A-arms for that for sure. But as far as the body roll and just overall ride quality, yeah, Elka transformed the bike. So if anybody's looking for like, what's the best thing I can do for my Polaris Sportsman, I would give Elka a call based upon our experience with the machine and their shocks. So, yeah.
I agree. You know what? It'd be great if we could pop up that phone number somewhere on here, but I'm not that technical. So we'll just continue on with our conversation. Danny, you weren't here last week for our show. You did watch it. You did have some opinions on some of the things. One of the big topics that we needed to come up with that we didn't get into is how can we help the promoters promote the events and be a positive move forward for the industry. You know, how can we get the information out to the local environments and make it so that our events, wherever they are, and for whatever series they are bigger, maybe some fans. Just we need to grow the industry, and there needs to be some maybe the promoters need some help. Maybe the industry needs to step in and do a little more to help this out. I'm going to start with you, Joe, and then give you a chance to get your thoughts ready, Danny, and then you can chime on in.
Well, let me use all my ammo right up front. You know, having a couple websites, you know, one for ATV and one for side by side, and then also having YouTube channels. I can tell you that a vast majority of your ability to reach the general public is on social media. Like, it boggles my mind how some of the other publications in the industry say they're still doing well with their website. Now, you know, admittedly, maybe our website game's not that great, and theirs is, but it seems like if you want to reach people, you know, YouTube is one of the best platforms on which to do it. It's the number 2 search engine in the world, and it's ran by the number 1 search engine in the world, Google. So, you know, basically, you know, it used to be they came to the websites for information. Viewers did if you wanted to see who won. At this point in time, who wins is on social media. You know, moments after the winner comes out, bam, it's right there on Facebook if you follow people who follow the series. But then, you know, these are people that are already interested in the series. They're already interested in motocross. They're already interested in or cross-country racing. They're interested in their family and friends that are there. And one thing that the promoters do that is good is they always send a pretty good race report, you know, and they send it out with pictures, and it's cool, and they want us to publish it, and we did for 10 years. But we're competing against social media. Like, why would you come to ATVondemand.com to see a race report on the Nationals when, if you already care, it's there? And then again, going back to a majority of the views of most publications, or at least ours, and I would say many others, it's coming off YouTube, it's coming off Facebook. So sending a race report is good, but I almost feel like...
Let me interrupt for a second, Joe. What I'm looking for is, if we're going to promote event X in Oklahoma City and we want to reach the local community, what would you do to reach that community, to bring out the spectators? Maybe you have a group of guys there that are just enthusiasts, that are just riding in the Oklahoma sand dunes, but they've never seen a motocross race, or they've never seen an off-road race with ATVs. How are we going to get to those people? They're not associated with any of the racing industry per se, and maybe they're like me, that Google's not the first thing that they're going to do.
So, well, can I chime in here?
Please.
I think what you're asking for is you want, you know, riders to go on local podcasts, local radio shows, go to, like, when you go have Supercross events, they go to the local dealerships on Friday night and sign autographs, and they work with the local dealerships to promote the race. I think that that's something that we in our industry, I'm not trying to say that we don't do that, but I've never seen that happen. I've never seen or heard of a local radio station playing a commercial for one of our events, or for any event that has to do with ATVs at all whatsoever. I think that's lost. You can do Pandora, you know, you can do Spotify. Doing commercials on platforms like that would be really good. Social media, having a local social media campaign, working with the local motocross tracks. Yeah, we're not having it at your event, but, you know, help us promote our event, so that way we can get this ball rolling and get us help us help you, because by you promoting us, it makes you look good. I mean, it goes back to the story of Christmas on 34th Street. You promote, other businesses, and then it makes you look like, oh, I'm not bitter because it's not at mine. It does promote you at the same time. So I think going back to those platforms and trying to do commercials is where you start. Problem is we don't generate enough revenue to be able to pay for those commercials. And I think that you need to, the industry hasn't changed at all whatsoever. And we're doing these big grand nationals. And I think that if we started on a smaller scale and did local events and did like 6 of them and did an arena event or did a
we're getting off topic about creating. We want to talk about how to promote what we have right now, because this is where our fight starts, is how are we going to improve what we have now? And I understand what you're saying, Joe, about the internet and social media. We're almost capped out on what we're reaching on our social media sites. With it's staying within our groups. It's not getting out into the unknown or the local region. And what I'm trying to get at is, Danny-Ray brought up a portion of it. Somebody needs to go to the local radio stations, the local TV, and the local newspaper and start, hey, I'm with this. We've been around for this many years. This is what we're doing. This is in your backyard. It would be advantageous for you to promote it. What can we do and see if we can start making it happen? Is this something that the industry people are going to do? Is this something that the riders are going to do? Or is this something that the promoters are going to do? That's what I'm looking for. In the old days, that's what we did. That's what you heard. And I mean, it only happened for a brief time, but you could go into the local areas and see some posters and hear a radio spot, or the news would come out every once in a while. Now it never happens. So this is what I'm asking is, where are we going to address it first?
Well, and I think, although I was giving a little too much backstory that I never got to the point I was trying to make, you're talking proactively. How do you promote it on the front end? And it just kind of to wrap up the first thing I was saying versus, them sending out press releases after the fact. How could they be more effective? We've wished for years that instead of giving us a print race report, if they sent me a video on Monday morning that was a highlight of the race from the weekend, something I could take and publish to a YouTube channel, as opposed to just a print story with a half dozen pictures to put on a website that people probably aren't going to visit. The time would be much better spent on that. And if they actually sent race report videos, you can have those posted on multiple YouTube channels from anybody who wants to run them. I think we certainly would, as long as they didn't cost us subscribers, if we were gaining or at least staying even with it. And that's a way that they could really leverage it, because we have, as one example, we currently have around 75,500 subscribers to ATV On Demand's YouTube channel, and the vast majority of them are not racers, and a lot of them are into sport quads. So although it is sort of like a race report sort of thing, their video could contain highlights, and then, hey, make sure to check out the ATV Nationals when they come to your area. Here's the list of dates. If it's their package and they wanted to put together a 3-4 minute little video that we could run on our social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, that would be one way that you could reach ATV enthusiasts that, from different places that aren't necessarily racers, that might just come and spectate, might give it a shot. So yeah, my original thing was kind of leading into how to better promote it through race reports and things like that. One thing that we did when I was working with John at ATV Scene back when the WPSA was going strong, it's like Danny was talking about with, going to your local motorcycle shop, going, One thing we did when they ran at Ichikani in Macon, Georgia, is we went to Capital Cycle, which is Donnie Bank's shop, and Factory Suzuki at the time showed up to do autographs, and there was a local radio station there promoting it. Like, John kind of took the wheel for promoting that race, helping Donnie Banks with that, because Donnie was very involved with Ichikani at the time. I don't know what the status is now, but besides that, we were going to the malls and putting out flyers. We were going to grocery stores putting up flyers. Like, anywhere that had a bulletin board that we could reach, we were posting things. So
that's it. That's exactly what I'm talking about with promotion and how it needs to be promoted. It's a lot of work to promote stuff like that. And I think that.
So we have,
we
have all this stuff.
We got a question.
Okay.
So what do you guys think people like me that are just like spectators, they're the public, they just are part of the community and they like to go watch the races? What can we do to promote the sport so that we continue to watch and have fun and go to racing, just as spectators?
So what she's asking is, she's a non-enthusiast, basically, that's an enthusiast from the sidelines. And how are we going to catch more of them? And then how are we going to keep them?
So my thing is with this is we have all of these things that you're talking about, these malls, these switchboards that you guys used to go to and place physical flyers on. We have all of that on social media. I mean, you go to social media, Facebook has a 450R page, 250R page. They have the Quadzilla quad page. They probably have a YSZ 450R. They have a TRX 450R. They probably have an LT 450. I don't do social media, but getting the guys on those platforms to help promote would be extremely well too. You're not allowed to advertise on those. You're not allowed to do a lot of things, but these are quad enthusiasts right there within our industry that reached thousands of people. The last time I looked, the 250R page years ago had over 1 million people within it. So posting on stuff like that and getting to be able to post videos or interviews or doing something and giving them the flexibility to be able to post on that and having them give us permission to do that would be extremely helpful to the industry. And when I say that, it's the guys from the 250R page, they want these companies to continue making 250R parts. Well, they need to support them and support the series that they have guys running in, because that's ultimately what keeps them in business. And I think that we've gotten away from that, and it's more of, oh, well, if you don't want the 250R, then sorry, I don't care. They're only for 250R. I'm not saying that about the 250R page or anything controversial. I'm just saying we need to use the platforms that we already have. Radio ads are super cheap. They reach a ton of people. Or Spotify and Pandora, both of those reach a ton of people as well. That for the community that we have, who are like this question that we just had, what you can do is you can help us by promoting it on social media yourself, trying to go out and bring friends, bring somebody who maybe is interested in the sport but doesn't know anything about it, bring them to an event, bring them to a race. They don't have to race, just have them come spectate, have them come watch and learn and grow. And if you continue to tell people, then continue to bring people, that person can bring another person, and it just escalates from there. I mean, I really think we need to get back to doing radio, Spotify, and Pandora. I mean, we have 10 events, set a budget aside to be able to put that in there. I'm just talking about the nationals, just set a budget to put that in there.
And another thing I would say to kind of build upon that is, besides leveraging like the big machine pages, which have a ton of viewers, a lot of different areas around the country, be it your city or your state, they have ATV pages that offer, ATV and side-by-side, or ATV or quad riders pages that are relevant to your local area. So, besides reaching out to your friends and hey, you want to come with me to the race this weekend? Quad racing's great. Come check it out. become a member of your local, or at least your most local ATV group, because these are groups for sharing information, and that's a great place to put information about a race that's coming to the area, or to promote a local race to get more people to go out to it. So yeah,
my understanding of all of that is great. I think that the ideas here are perfect. Now, who's going to implement it? Who's going to start one event at a time and go and start reaching out to all of this stuff? Should it be the promoter, the racer, or the industry? Which one are we going to task with this job, and how are we going to police it? Bad term, but how are
Who
we
makes the
going
money
to
off of the person coming in
the
and paying to
promoter?
watch
The
the event?
promoter's making the money.
Okay, so then that's the person who should be doing it.
So how are you going to get the promoter to do it?
So
the person making the money is the person that should be spending the money.
yeah,
Right. So how are you going to get them to do it? Well, that's the people in the industry that are making money off the industry. We're selling parts to these individuals that are going to these events, that are racing. Yeah, you're making money off those people. That's how you're staying in business, because they're doing
slim margin.
It is a slim margin, but still. So if the promoters aren't going to do it, what are we going to do? Are we just going to sit here and talk about it and not do anything?
So that's where you got
to the ball rolling and see if we can help them.
So to be honest with you, from listening to your last podcast, I'm not trying to sound negative here or anything like that. The guy who runs the national series, he doesn't want to help with the cameras. He doesn't want to help with more promotion. It doesn't sound like he wants to do it. So somebody's got to take up the mantle. And I know that the national series has been a popular series forever, but maybe we need to start a new series. Maybe you need to start small, start locally. And I'm sorry that that's probably controversial, but start somewhere where we're going to be able to promote it and build it bigger to bring in the fan base, be able to do YouTube videos, be able to maybe stream it live, and it not have a promoter who's willing to do that. And yeah, that'd probably take some time to build and get, but if the industry got on board with somebody who is willing to do something like that, then that series would grow exponentially.
Well, 867 Diesel said that he learned about a lot of these events by going to the riding park and having word of mouth, talking to people. And then he reached out to people that he met. And this is how they started growing the local XC series, was because of word of mouth. And I think word of mouth is great. And I agree with both of you. The promoter should be doing this, and there should be things going on with making the people that promote this, that own the series, have the rules implemented to do this. I just am wondering if we'll be able to sit down with the governing body and get the things to change. That's my biggest concern. And I hope we can. I hope that we can get a group together. Joe, you and I have talked in depth about this. I'm hoping that we can get the industry together to understand that to grow, we need to do something different. And I'm not saying that any of these people are bad. We really should be thanking the track owners that are providing the races that they do, because if they weren't willing to take the race, we wouldn't have a place to race. So making sure.
And I'm not pointing the finger at anyone, in it, but it's if you make the money, you got to spend the money. But just to kind of reiterate what you're saying, like, I watched your live broadcast Friday with Max Lindquist, and he was talking about Briarcliff was an awesome track, had bounce houses for the kids, or the big kids, hopefully, and pit bike races and all kinds of fun stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the promoters really bend over backwards to do a good job. But then just sort of revisiting growing racing at the local level, here we are in Cincinnati, where we're based out of, and like our local motocross scene is almost non-existent. And I've pondered, like, if I had time, I'd like to see a few local races. I used to race from time to time just to give people somebody to beat, and start a local ride club, find local people that have ATVs. Hey, if you're interested in racing and you want to grow it, try to get local people to join a local Facebook page that's dedicated to racing. And then if you have a group of 10, 15, 25, 50 guys and gals that like to go race quads, hey, let's go all race the national this weekend. It's coming to town. You know, I think there's lots of things that we can do as individuals to do it, to help promote the sport. But inevitably, you know, the responsibility lies with the people who are making the money, and a little bit with the rest of us too. So,
Well, I think that we're going to have to step outside of our normal channels and see what we can do to promote things, maybe on our own, maybe as individuals. You know, maybe Joe and I can start something and get it rolling, or maybe, you know, Danny becomes a keyboard warrior and starts attacking everybody, you know, and saying, hey, this is what you got to do, this is where you got to go, and this is what race is coming. Yes,
Maybe we could do flyers online on Instagram, Facebook, and the platforms, so people can share when and where the races are, and then maybe where they can watch them online if there's somebody that's, you know, putting them on YouTube or something.
we could do a schedule of races that are published on YouTube. I don't think you can watch any of those races anywhere but YouTube. Can you, Joe?
from what I've heard, the motocross nationals aren't all being televised anymore. And when they were, it was very late. It was like months and months and months after the event took place. I don't think you can watch motocross live on the internet. I mean, the only highlights that I know of online, because, you know, to throw credit where credit's due, you know, Gloop from Rip It Up Films, he does a lot of video at the events. He films there, does a lot of videos for the racers. And he always puts out some footage of, you know, people riding at the event. It's not necessarily like, here's who got the whole shot, here's who passed two, here's how they finished. But, you know, he does create content that's fun to watch from the event. But as far as watching the racing goes, that's all that I know of, is what stuff, you know, Gloop posts that's not like a formal race report format for those who want to see the passes and the, you know, who won.
Right. And I think Gloop does an amazing job promoting this stuff. I love watching some of his videos. I think there's another person up there posting photos. For the life of me, I can never catch who it is, but they go to a lot of this stuff and take a bunch of photos and do, maybe, I think they may do some video as well. And it's great. The content is excellent. And if you're watching for ATV stuff, you're watching their videos and their photos, seeing their photos. It's awesome.
But here's one problem with individuals, you know, just doing it, is you have the echo chamber problem, you know, because when somebody has a YouTube channel and they go to the nationals and they make videos of the nationals and then they put it on their YouTube channel, well, the people that know about that YouTube channel are primarily the people that are at the event. And I'm sure they gain people outside of it, but, you know, it's like, of all the ATV enthusiasts in the world, a very small percentage of them race. And so while it's cool to do videos of racing to put on your YouTube channel that's going to collect people interested in racing, there's the whole rest of the ATV world that isn't necessarily a racer, but might be interested in racing because they own a machine that the racers have and they want to learn about the parts and things like that. I know as a young man, when I was first getting interested in the sport, you know, I loved watching the Mickeys on TV, Mickey Thompson Stadium Racing, for those of you too young to remember it. And the one thing that really got me interested in racing as far as the magazines went was the tie-in between the machines, the aftermarket parts, and the racers. It's like, oh, this guy races the bike I own. I want to see more about him and the parts that he runs. So I'm just being kind of rambly here a little bit, but point being is, if you can find ways to get the sport in front of people who aren't necessarily interested in the sport at this time, as opposed to posting for people who already are interested in the sport, you grow the audience. If you're just posting to people that are already interested in what you're doing, you're not growing the audience.
That was
So
that was a great way of saying what I was trying to say earlier, that we need to get outside of our little box, and I think that's huge. I want to shift gears and transition into a different topic. This was brought up to me about our modern day medical industry and the physiology. In the chat, I not to stop what I was saying, but OLN used to or still does broadcast. They don't do it anymore. OLN doesn't do it anymore. They used to do it for the outdoor cross country stuff, and now they don't. Don't know what changed there. Where are the GNCCs shown now? Is it on Peacock or is it on MAM TV?
MAP TV that went out of business.
So it's not happening anywhere then. So we're going to have to work on that, Joe, on our own, okay? And we'll make this happen
for sure. But they do it. They still do broadcasts it live on the internet, and they do a pretty good job. It's really entertaining to watch. It's really entertaining to listen to. They got some pretty awesome drone pilots that get out there and show you a lot of the action. So fortunately, you can still watch the cross countries.
And that's on YouTube, right?
On the internet, and it's good.
Is it on YouTube?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it is. If don't quote me on that. If it's not, it's on gnccracing.com. But
probably on gnccracing.com.
For sure.
We'll have to promote that. So Danny, this is going to fall a little bit in your wheelhouse. Joe, I know you're a high-level athlete in martial arts or MMA, jiu-jitsu. So this is going to fall into your wheelhouse as well, I think. As we move forward in the modern industry of physical fitness and the medical field advances, do you think that the requirements and the restrictions they put on some supplements should change in the motocross, for whether it be motorcycles or ATVs or athletes in general? Are they stifling people from being able to use certain products that should be legal, or should they do more limitation on it? I'm not really sure. I'm kind of a free thinker in this. I don't believe supplements are ever going to put somebody in motorcycle racing or ATV racing out in front of anybody else, but that's just my opinion. Danny, since you're in the medical field, what do you think?
It's kind of a loaded question, honestly. I think that when you look at stuff like this, a lot of these supplements and stuff like that, we don't know 100% always what they do to children. And usually most of them suggest not doing it until after 25 because it can stunt your growth. It can do a lot of different things. So when we look at stuff like that, we need to really take into consideration that some of these, I mean, look at JJ Launderville. I mean, if he started taking something, it could adversely affect him in the long run. And I think that that's something we need to take into consideration and really try and limit what young athletes are supposed to take and do. I mean, you look at it, athletes aren't supposed to start lifting weights until they're 13. A lot of them are starting to lift even younger than that. And we look at the injuries that we're having in football and all these other stuff. They're trying to say it's at a higher level. And I don't know. I think maybe they're starting younger with lifting weights, with taking supplements. And what are these supplements doing? Are they, they're making you stronger, but did they strengthen the tendon that holds your muscle to the bone? Is that why we're having bicep issues and ACL tears, MCL tears, and all this stuff? But, like, I just personally think that you should wait. I did as a younger man take some stuff to try and help me improve to go into the military. I took some testosterone, and I don't know if it really affected me in any way other than it made me be able to go from, let's just say, 50 push-ups to 100 push-ups, in one shot at a very rapid pace. But as soon as you stop taking those, your push-ups go back down to like 50, 60. I mean, you have small gains. Yeah, those small gains are quicker, But what is it realistically doing to your body? I mean, more men nowadays, because of these supplements, are on added testosterone at an earlier age than ever before. I think that the supplement can be helpful. I think protein, I think hydration, all of those things. But I mean, it's really hard to know what's good and what's bad, because if you put anything under, in the United States anyways, under FDA law, if it's a weight loss supplement, it's under different guidelines than it is for athletics and stuff like that. So a lot of these companies, that even the testosterone pills, all of these companies, they put it under weight loss, because then they fall under a different category of approval through the FDA. So what are we really putting in these kids' bodies?
You're in the MMA jiu-jitsu world, Joe, and I know that you see supplements and things like this in that world. What do you think?
Well, my background, I've done quite a bit of jiu-jitsu. I'm not ranked, but I've done quite a bit of rolling with jiu-jitsu guys just because I need it for the ground. And then I started Taekwondo when I was 18. I hold a 3rd degree in that. You know, in the UFC, in mixed martial arts, they have a very strict testing protocol, you know, and they're constantly updating it with what different things they can take. They can't. I don't know if we have any testing protocol in ATV racing. Hopefully there's not a need for it. But, you know, as far as, and I'm not a doctor, I'm not a dietitian. I want to put all that out there, disclaimer. You know, but when it comes to supplements and what I would and wouldn't take, you know, I think I've heard it said that if you get cancer at a very young age, it tends to be more aggressive than if you're at an older age. And that's because of the hormones that your body produces at a young age, like testosterone, growth hormones, things like that, that kind of promote cancer growth, that those levels of those hormones are lower in an older person. So a lot of times cancer tends to be less aggressive. That could be completely wrong. That's just what I've heard from medical professionals. You know, that being said, you know, as far as, you know, supplements, you know, like making sure you're getting adequate protein, you know, if you're not eating a ton of fruits and vegetables a day, you know, it's hard to get 8 servings, 10 servings of fruits and vegetables in a day. You know, doing some vitamin supplementing, trying to eat a healthy, clean diet, not processed food. You know, if it's not made in a lab and it's found in a diet, you know, of whole foods, then, you know, I don't see a problem with that. I don't recommend, you know, I wouldn't. I'm 48 years old. Doctor asks me every time I go in there, how's the body working? It's like, it's fine. You know, if you're older and you need testosterone replacement to have, you know, a normal body function, then that's one thing. But as far as young people trying to take testosterone and human growth hormone to pack on muscles, that we don't know what the long-term side effects of that are. You know, that if that results in you getting cancer 20 years earlier in life and cutting your life short, because we don't really know the long-term side effects of that, it's just not worth it. Eat clean, you know, take supplements that are found in nature, and I'd say train your ass off. You can't cut corners.
Well, first thing is a disclaimer: we're not doctors, we're not giving medical advice or any of this, so please don't think that we are. What do you think about the plastics in the soy causing it to affect T levels in males? Because you look at some of society seems to be weaker, smaller. We're losing some of our male tendencies are, you know, we're breeding smaller, weaker men.
Well, you know, and you look at the American diet. The American diet is trash. Americans tend to eat around 300 grams of carbohydrates a day. That's completely unnecessary. And especially when you start getting into processed carbohydrates, because we're not talking about full high quality Like what you'd find in an apple or what you'd find in berries, where there's lots of fiber there with the carbohydrates. We're talking about white bread stripped down of any nutritional value. And when you eat a very high process, whether soy can raise estrogen in men. High carb diets don't do you a lot of good for your testosterone. I went through a metabolic scare a couple of years ago. My blood sugar was very, very bad. And through a couple of years of research, because I've never stopped, although I put that demon back in the bag just through dietary changes, reached a weight late in life that I never had when I was younger. I was more athletic at 47 than I was at 21. And at 21, I trained all the time. I train less now because of work and all that, but I'm in better shape at 48 now than I was as a 21-year-old guy. I eat a very high protein, high fat diet. I've heard a lot of nutritional experts saying that, a high fat diet, now obviously we're talking high quality fats like fish, the fat you find in fish, the fat you find in avocados, the fat you find in nuts, a good quality, high fat, high protein diet will actually raise testosterone levels in men. I've seen a personal benefit from cutting crappy carbs out of the diet and going to a clean, low carb, high fat, high protein diet. I would say it's made me a better man than I've been in quite a while. It's not hard to put on muscle, and athletically, it's a game changer. So the American diet's trash. And if you're eating a low quality, highly processed diet, it doesn't matter what supplements you consider, eat clean. And think about what you put in your mouth. That's where it starts.
Yeah, I agree with that. I believe that I'm not a huge fan of the FDA, just from the recent past in our country. But you look at some of the foods that are banned in other countries that they allow here.
There's a ton of them.
It's crazy. Some of the stuff they put in our food that is 100% bad for us. Some of the things that get injected into pork, beef, how long it takes beef to go from being butchered to your table, the amount of days that are there. So the things that they're putting into it, which we're getting off topic, but you have to really watch this stuff. I've said this many times. My wife's from Mexico, and when we go to Mexico, there are times when we're eating beef that came from the butcher.
Tasty.
And they don't put steroids in it. They're not putting all this other stuff in it. And the meat tastes different. It tastes better and you feel better. Same with the breads and some of the other stuff that you've eaten. I know, Danny, I've experimented. I don't know if you've ever experimented with some of these things, Joe. I have in a small form, and I got stronger, but I didn't gain any endurance on the track. It didn't do anything for me like that. I just could push a little more weight, and it didn't make me a better athlete. I believe that we need to look into the plastics and the soy and the things that we're eating. If you eat clean and train good, our training methods have gotten better. So why are we not securing some of our injuries? I know that I train with a man, and he tells me to stretch as much as I train, to stretch that much, if not more, and that'll keep me from having pulled muscles. That'll allow me to have muscle growth. And Joe, you can attest to this because I'm sure you stretch a lot. I've seen how limber you are. And I mean that in a positive way. The guy's physical fit. So if you stretch more, you're not going to have the tendon problems. You're not going to have some of these other problems. And it's great for your muscles and your body. It's almost, if you stretch right, it's almost like going through a workout.
A good stretching program, will prevent a lot of injuries that are occurred in racing. I've had a few rough get-offs, and having a body that's pliable and limber really helps prevent injuries in any sport. You simply slip and fall in the wintertime on some ice. A flexible body that's pliable is far less prone to injury.
I agree. You look at the incident that happened at Gatorback this year with Joel Hetrick and Chad Weenan and a few other riders. Yeah, there were some injuries out of that, but they came back quicker. You know what, Danny, we talked earlier in one of our very first shows about the amount of motorcycle professional supercross guys that were hurt. Do you think maybe it's supplement related or lack of training related?
To be honest with you, I don't. They have strict rules. You look at their rules, and you have guys, that have been suspended for a year for taking supplements that were not correct or not that were on the list that were not supposed to be taken. I forget. There was a pretty famous one that got kicked out for a year that was doing really well. It was number 20. Oh my gosh, why can't Tickle? Was it Tickle? I can't remember, but one of them that was doing really good coming through, and he was coming back from an injury, and he hasn't came back, I don't think. So they have strict rules against their supplements. I don't know if it is supplements. I think maybe some of it is they're training too hard. Because there is that fine line when you speak to and talk to somebody is you have to look at Khabib. Everybody knows the Eagle from UFC. If you look at his training regimen, yes, he trains a lot, but he also rests a lot too. He trains for a couple hours, goes and takes a nap, goes and eats, relaxes, trains for a couple more hours, relaxes. And he's probably the greatest UFC fighter of all time. If you look at his training, nutrition, all the stuff he does, it's on a different level than a lot of people, and he trains more than other people. But you got to give yourself that time to recover. You look at the Baker factory and all the guys that are coming out of that, he does really good work, but he does metabolic studies as they're training. He does checks their glucose levels to make sure that they're not overtraining. There's a lot of science that goes into that. And those are the top guys in the world, and they can afford that. The problem is that the guys who can't afford that aren't on factory rides are trying to do the same type of training without the testing that the other athletes go through. And I'm not saying that you have to have all of that or anything like that. I think that you can probably win, or you can win without it. I mean, Eli Tomac doesn't do training like that. He goes to Rhino Power, I think. So I think it's a combination of a lot of things, but I think lifting weights at a young age, training as hard as they do at a young age does not help. I mean, you got to give your body time to develop and grow and really, like, we want it now. And that's our society right now is it's got to be. And if you give yourself time to develop and time to grow into your body and grow into your muscles and do it slower with just calisthenics instead of lifting weights and not doing it as hard as they do at such a young age, I think you would see better results in the long term. And on top of that, I truly feel like they would have longer careers.
Do you think that we should start our athletes at an older age, hold them off till they're 10, 12, 13 years old before we get them into athletics? Or do we keep them in some type of athletic program, maybe start them when they're 3 or 4 years old?
I think it's okay to start them in athletics. I'm not saying that it's not okay to start them in athletics. I think where the clear definition is when they're training like they're a professional when they're, 8, 9, 10 years old. I know some people who, they have their, 9-year-old daughter doing weight training, 3-4 times a week to, help her with volleyball and soccer. And she's 9 years old. She's not a pro. She doesn't need that. She needs to go out there and have fun, find the love for the sport before she even does that. And I think everybody wants to have their kid be the next pro athlete. And instead of giving them time to develop and figure out what they want to do and figure out what they like to do and then train them on that, they're just pushing these kids into stuff. And that's a whole nother topic. But, weight training, doing CrossFit, doing all this stuff at before you're 13 years old is super counterintuitive to your body. And yeah, you can run and you can do calisthenics, and those are great for you your entire life.
I don't think
But as soon as you start lifting weights, you're done.
I don't think they focus enough on the stretching aspect of it. Because when you go as a young athlete to a program, there is no warm up, there is no stretching, there is none of this. It's
In
like
jiu-jitsu there is.
Well,
so my kids, when they do,
and in the comment, we're gonna talk. Turlock Comics made a comment that it's super easy to beat most of these tests that they're taking. But you got to shout these guys out for being in the comment section. Turlock Comics and 867 Diesel. We appreciate you guys chiming in and being with us. But I think that we're focusing, this is going to be a little controversial, but I don't think we're focusing enough on the development of our young athletes correctly or their educational skills. The younger you are, the more that you're inputted the information, reading, writing, arithmetic, and stretching, things like that. You don't have to do the skills. You can focus more on their athlete's health. That's just my opinion. I'm not a huge fan of restrictions for professional athletes. Once you're a professional athlete, you're a professional athlete. Do whatever you want to do. I mean, it's your body, it's your pain. I agree, Danny. We differ on it, and it's okay. Yes, go ahead.
But I mean, don't they have some of those rules also? Because what if there's an athlete that's taking something and then they're in the event and they suddenly have a heart attack or something? Isn't that to also prevent that kind of thing?
I don't think that is. Did you guys hear what Valeria's question was?
Yeah, I mean, if they wanted to do that, then they would stop mandating the vaccine.
Oh, hey, I agree with that, but 100 million %. Go ahead, Joe.
I got tripped up on the vaccine comment. That was pretty good.
You haven't read your shirt. You didn't read your shirt, did you?
Unvaccinated, unafraid.
There you go.
Pure blood. If you need a blood transfusion, call me. I won't poison you. No, I think it's very important that we get kids started in athletics at a very young age in this country. We have a childhood obesity epidemic in the United States like we've never had before. We are the fattest poor people in the planet. And, it's all the way through. Kids are tied to their cell phones. Like any kind of activity you can get a kid into that requires some athleticism. I agree, other than weightlifting at a young age. Or doing hardcore CrossFit, but any kind of calisthenics, sit-ups, push-ups, pull-ups. Yeah, I mean, get out there and play soccer, whatever. Kids need to get out and move. I don't think you can start a kid in athletics too soon. And yeah, I would agree with that. We had a physician at our Taekwondo school. He was a physician at Children's Hospital. Super athletic guy, came from Mexico. And I asked him why he didn't really have our competition team doing any weight training. And he told me, kids shouldn't start lifting heavy weights until well into their teens, after most of their growth has finished taking place, because, I guess it can stun growth through damaging growth plates and things like that. So
it also affects your joints.
Right. And I think that's, yes, 100%. So yeah, weight training, not necessarily good for the kids. And to touch on the Supercross thing and why there's been so many injuries in Supercross this year, I've talked to a couple of OEMs about it. And I even got to have a conversation with Scott Plessinger, because he owns our local motocross track and cross-country place that we test at quite a bit. And I asked him, why do you think there were so many injuries this year? Because I've never seen a Supercross season, having watched since '89, where we've had this many top pros go out. And I said, is it that the bikes are too big and too fast? Because you've heard a lot about that. And he said that, what he thinks has really hurt Supercross this year is that the tracks aren't technical enough, that everybody can do every obstacle almost, to the point that the only thing you can do to win is go faster. There's not a lot of obstacles that are separating the fast guys from the mid-pack guys, from the back markers. And so all you can do is hold the throttle on more. And, you know, combine that, like you didn't see all these injuries in the 250 like you saw on the 450. So take that high horsepower bike, combine it with a track where all you can do is go faster. And that seems to be what looks like it led up to the Supercross injuries that we had this year. That the tracks need to get more technical and slow them down and separate them.
I like that. I think it would be great. You know, you have your couple big triples, you know, and then you're putting it into, you know, a tighter technical turning system. The whoops are super high speed, you know, and if you're going over some of those whoops now, you know, and you're in third or fourth gear bouncing across them, when you hit the ground, it's going to hurt, you know, and it's going to damage you.
Yeah.
But I want to shift into our last little topic, and there might be some controversialness to it, which I don't mean there to be. I'm asking a question and I want to get an honest opinion. Do riders and sponsors need to have the same loyalty to one another? And is there a loyalty factor in this? Because we've turned into a industry or of, you know, what have you done for me lately? You know, what are you going to give me? What are you going to give me? And I just wanted to know from your two's opinions what you guys think.
Can I ask for a little bit more context? Are you saying do sponsors and riders need to have equal loyalty to one another, or are you saying
Yes.
that riders and sponsors need to have the same kind of loyalty that they used to have?
Well, I'd love to have, you know, the old days back where the riders respected their sponsors and treated them with respect and appreciated everything they got. And I've seen the sponsors do the same thing back, but I don't think that's coming back.
I think you need to put that even in more context than that. I mean, you take the top pros, you take Chad Wienen, you know, Joel Hetrick, those two guys in ATVs, and they've been pretty loyal to their sponsors. I feel like Chad Wienen's ran Yamaha from the get, and he, you know, not from the get, but I mean, he rode for Can-Am. He was loyal to Can-Am as long as Can-Am was in the industry. He rode for Kawasaki, and he was loyal to Kawasaki until they were out of the industry. And now he's rode for Yamaha and started his own thing, and he's been loyal to Yamaha, FMF, Wiseco, I think, Walsh, all of those sponsors. He's been pretty dang loyal to them, and I feel like for how many championships he's won, he could have switched quite a few times. But I don't want everybody to think that, you know, the top guys aren't loyal. I mean, look at Bo Barron. Bo Barron's been with Curtis Sparks since he rode. You know, what?
He's won all but one title with Sparks.
Huh?
Yeah, I mean, you look at, you know, the top guys, and they are loyal. I'm sure the GNCC guys are probably pretty loyal as well. So I don't think that that loyalty has died at the top level of the sport as much as we think. But there's more companies coming in. There's different stuff going on, and you know, like, I think that you need to find what's best for you. And sometimes the sponsors and sometimes the riders, they just don't see eye to eye. And I think it's better for both to part ways than it is to keep them together. Like, if you don't believe in something, you cannot promote that efficiently. You cannot promote that at the level that it needs to be if you're a rider. And if you don't believe in the rider, you can't promote them at the level that you need to elevate them. So I feel like that matters more than loyalty to one another. I think it's finding a good fit and a good family to be able to support each other equally. And that doesn't always happen. And you have to find, you know, that balance. I think a lot of times there's not clear expectations as well. People don't sit down and be like, you know, I'm going to take it back to like my profession of working at the school, I have a medical director for my program. Okay. We sat down for him to become my medical director. I told him what I expected of him, and he told me what he expected of me. And we talked about what we expected the outcomes of the students to be. We don't sit down and talk like that in the industry about what the expectations are. And that's what needs to happen in order for the loyalty to be changing. Because as a sponsor, you need to be able to sit down and have a open line of communication with that rider and be like, hey, look, I expect you to post about me once a week. I expect you to say my name on the podium, and I expect you to be training and performing at the highest level that you can. And if you're not going to do that, and you're not going to come in and meet me at my expectations, then I'm not going to sponsor you. And the rider needs to come with their expectations from the sponsor and be like, hey, this is what I expect. I expect you to post about me. I expect you to get my parts to me on time. I expect you to do this. I expect you to do, like, whatever it is. There needs to be that clear expectation on both sides. It can't be a verbal thing like it used to be in the past. And I think that that's different. And but at the same time, there has to be clear expectations, and you have to have one vision, not separate visions for sponsors and riders.
Said it pretty good, didn't he, Joe?
I think you did. And, I look at this from the context of a greedy capitalist. When it comes to, and obviously, we're talking about loyalty, but I think loyalty comes naturally if you do a good job for somebody. Like, one company who does not sponsor us, but does help us out with gear because we get them views as Fly Racing. And they've been very good about keeping us in their gear. And they support the ATV industry a lot. They sponsor a lot of riders, give a lot of discounts. And, whenever we do a test on a vehicle and they send us gear, we feature it a few times in a test, and we'll pan that rider and we'll put riding gear, Fly Racing. We'll say what the gear is. We put their website, because we want to make sure that, hey, they're taking care of us. We're taking care of them. And, for those of us who've been around for a while, it's like the expectations of what you could do in the 90s versus now are very different. Like, you as an individual racer have the opportunity to be much more impactful than you did in the 90s, because back then it's like, well, I put your stickers on my bike and I talk to my friends at the track. But, again, like now with social media, the opportunity to get out there and get those products in front of more people is just much, much easier. And we have to humble ourselves and understand that there's less money in it right now for the companies, but yet we as riders still expect the same, or at least the same deal we used to get. But you should expect to do more for that deal than a guy would have had to do 20 years ago for that same deal, because the demand for the product is probably down a little bit and the costs have gone up, and you as an individual have an opportunity to be more impactful. So slapping a sticker on your bike isn't good enough anymore. I talk to some companies that we deal with about sponsoring riders, and, one name I always drop is, man, Hunter Hart. That guy's social media game is so strong. He's always posting videos that are funny and show his personality, and taking advantage of the opportunities that you can to get yourself out in front of more people is the best way to justify a company giving you a discount. So, if you want sponsorships, you got to work for it. It's not as easy as it used to be, but if you're willing to put in more work than the next guy, I think it almost comes down to how good is your promotion compared to how good do you finish. I don't think you've got to win championships and have the #1 plate to get sponsors if you're pushing for your sponsors. So I think was what I'm saying.
So I got one more thing to add to that, to caveat off of what you said. You talked about Plessinger. You're talking about Aaron Plessinger's dad, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Scott.
So Aaron Plessinger is probably, he's one of my favorite riders. My kids have his shirts. You go there, he does not win. He is a great rider, but he has not won a Supercross race. But when they announce him, to the stadium, when he comes out, the entire stadium erupts for Aaron Plessinger. When Aaron Plessinger makes a pass, the whole stadium erupts. Everybody loves Aaron Plessinger. He's authentic. He's a good guy, and he has a great social media game too, from what I understand. And everybody loves the Cowboy. Going back to that social media and stuff, they need to do stuff like that. There's a video when I was still on social media. There's a girl, she couldn't sing like, Taylor Swift or Madonna or whatever, but she made a funny video. She was a TT rider, I believe, of her and her boyfriend she's sitting there playing the ukulele or whatever on her Yamaha, but she got a Honda. So she's like, I'm sorry, I'm not loyal to Yamaha anymore. I'm switching to Honda, or vice versa, whatever it was. And that got a ton of traction, and just making funny videos and stuff like that will get out there. And that's a good way to promote your sponsors. I think that we get stuck in this rut of, they need to post videos of them riding. They need to post videos of them working out or anything like that. No, people want to get to know you. People want to know who you are as a person. They don't always necessarily care about what you finish on the track. They want to know you're a genuine person. They want to know that you're a nice person, that what you do on the outside, they can see too, and just get a little glimpse of what you do on a daily basis. Like, posting a picture of you and your girlfriend, or posting a video of you singing to your girlfriend, or whatever it is. That's the stuff they want to see. And to bring it back to what we talked about in the beginning about promoting the sport and these things, is getting rider profiles. I've talked to my dad about this a lot. We made one, you were involved in it, Joe, for Max Lindquist. I feel like there's a lot that we can improve with what we did. And between the three of us, we could improve that. But getting these rider profiles and getting these personalities out there for them to know who this person is, and getting behind the scenes looks, I think would be exponentially progressive for our sport too. Not necessarily always the racing. Sometimes it's hard to get that many cameras out on a racetrack to get the passes, get all of that stuff. But we could start small, and we could do rider profiles. We could do interviews, press conferences after the race, get the top 3 guys in a press conference, get the 4th guy there, and do these press conferences after the race and do that live on YouTube. That would gain traction. There's other things that you can do that don't necessarily require us to do a lot of money spending in the front. But yeah, Aaron Plessinger is one of the favorite riders of everybody.
I agree. And that's me and my wife, when he was leading this year, before he went down, we were like on the edge of our seat, just like, yes, yes. And every time Ricky would be like, if he can just hold on to, we're just like, shut up, Ricky. You're going to jinx it. I was telling Scott when I talked to him, Scott Plessinger, Aaron's dad, I was like, dude, we just think that they should just give your son 3 minutes every round of Supercross, injured or not, whether he's riding his best or not. Give that guy 3 minutes with the mic to just cut a promo, because he's got the best personality in the sport. Lovable dude. Dude.
Well, guys, I want to thank you so much for all your inputs today. We had a great conversation. Hopefully we came up with some great ideas for the industry. Joe, as always, you're always welcome on the morning show and anything ATV Talk does. So anybody that wants to know, Joe runs ATV On Demand and UTV On Demand. So go check him out. I'm sure you'll learn something and enjoy his channel as well. Danny-Ray, as always, son, it's a pleasure to talk with you. Your insights are different than mine in some cases, but I think that's youth, and I appreciate them a lot. So gentlemen, we're gonna end the show for the day, and I appreciate you being here. Anything you'd like to shout out in closing really quick?
Go check out Duncan Entertainment, and if you guys want any of those rider profiles or anything to elevate yourself, contact Duncan Entertainment, contact ATV-TALK or Duncan Tech. Thank you for having me.
Always, brother. Joe?
Watch for the Sportsman Project I was talking about at the beginning of the show, coming up pretty soon. We're going to be filming a video with Cole Richardson in the next month before GNCC fires back up, because Cole Richardson's having a heck of a season. Rumor was he didn't know if he was coming back for this year for 23, but he came back and he's had a stellar year, and we're going to have a talk with him and do a deep dive into his machine and do some filming with it and see what advantages he's gained this year that might be able to help your GNCC or your local cross-country race program. So look for that in the next couple months.
And ATV Talk will be interacting with Dirt Wheels Direct here shortly, also with premiering a machine that we have for them. So check out all those outlets, and everybody have an amazing weekend. Thank you much, and we'll see you next week.